All right, so today we're going to do something a little different. We're looking at 3 true, absolutely harrowing first-person accounts of school lockdowns. And what we're going to do is weave them together into one single story that just keeps escalating.
You know that phrase, we've all heard it, but what happens when it's real? This is what a high school dean actually yelled over the loudspeaker, his voice totally frantic. It's the one sentence that can just shatter a normal day and throw everyone into chaos. So our story starts with the most primal kind of fear, right? The fear of the unknown. In this first account, the threat is just this terrifying presence that you can hear, but you can't see.
I mean, just picture the scene. It's a Friday. Spring break is literally hours away. The students are so antsy, they're just playing trivia games with their teacher. The vibe is totally relaxed, totally normal. It is the absolute last place you'd ever expect something horrible to happen.
And then, just like that, everything flips. After that panicked announcement, their teacher, who's usually super calm, just sprints to the light switch. And then the entire school goes dark. The power cuts out. And in that eerie silence, they hear it, screaming, right outside their door.
And that's when the unseen threat gets a voice. They hear a man just screaming at the top of his lungs, his words echoing down the hall as he starts violently banging on lockers. Suddenly, the threat isn't just some abstract thing anymore. It's specific, it's personal, and it's terrifyingly close.
And then, the banging moves from the lockers to their classroom door. Can you imagine? Just sitting there in the total darkness, hearing your classmates crying as a man is screaming, "Open up," just inches away. The narrator said it felt like an eternity before the pounding finally moved on down the hall.
So after about 10 minutes of silence, the dean's voice comes back on. But this is a really strange kind of all clear. He says some unstable guy assaulted a staff member, but they swept the school and couldn't find him. The immediate danger seems to be over, but the threat, he's still out there somewhere.
But the story doesn't even end there. A rumor started going around that a janitor later found the guy asleep in a storage closet, and sticking out of his pocket was what looked like a .44 Magnum. But by the time the police got there, he was gone again. Never found.
Okay, let's move to our second act, because this is where things really build. We're going from an unknown man screaming in a hallway to a threat that is very specific, very close, and, well, very disturbed.
So it's another normal day, but this time we're in a middle school cafeteria. And all of a sudden, 4 loud booms interrupt lunch. Some kids think it's just thunder, but campus security, they know better. They rush in, yelling for everyone to get into the multi-purpose room and to do it fast. And this is where the threat becomes horrifyingly clear. This is no longer some ghost in the hallway. It's a man in a house right next to the school. He's a registered sex offender who had been seen watching students. And it gets worse. He'd been seen cutting his own arm and writing "Don't come here or I'll kill you" in his own blood on his window. The danger was now very known.
And that brings us to our third and final act, the direct confrontation. Now, the threat isn't in the hallway, it's not next door, it's in the same room. Our narrator this time is a 22-year-old intern, fresh out of college. He's working by himself in this tiny office in the school basement when he gets the call. Lockdown. Someone might have a weapon in the building. The huge problem here, his office doesn't have a door, and the main basement door doesn't even lock. He is completely exposed.
So for 20 minutes, he's just sitting there in the dark, texting his coworkers, getting no reply. And then he hears it, the creak of the basement door. Footsteps come running down the stairs, getting closer and closer, until a figure steps right into his office. He dives under his desk, his heart just hammering in his chest.
Suddenly, a hand grabs his arm and pulls him up. It's a man wearing a plaid shirt and a cap, and he says, "It's okay, I'm just down here hiding with you." The narrator is desperate for any information, so he asks what's going on upstairs. For just a split second, it seems like he's found an ally. Just then, his phone lights up. It's a text from his coworker. "Some guy with a gunshot, Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and hat. Whatever you do, don't come upstairs." In that single moment of pure dread, he reads the text, and then he looks up at the man standing right in front of him. The man in the red shirt and hat. The man realizes he's been caught. The narrator's only thought is to run. He just bolts for the stairs, and as he does, a gunshot explodes in the tiny basement. He can hear the bullet ricochet off something metal in the dark. He'd been shot at, and somehow missed.
So the immediate danger in these stories, it does eventually pass. But the resolution isn't always clean, and the psychological impact, well, that echo of fear lasts a lifetime.
So, what happened in the end? Well, the outcomes were all over the place. The first guy, the screamer in the hallway, he got away and was never identified. The second situation, with the man next door, was just vaguely described as settled. But the third, the shooter in the basement, he was caught by police who were waiting right at the basement exit.
And there is some good news. The teacher who was shot in that third story, Mr. Buckley, he actually survived his injuries. We never find out why he was targeted, just that there's no way he could have done anything to deserve that.
This is the final thought from the intern who faced the shooter, and it just perfectly captures the trauma that lasts. The physical danger might be over in a few minutes, but the memory, that sound, the fear, that becomes a part of you forever.
For anyone who lives through something like this, the story doesn't just end when the lockdown is lifted. It leaves us all with a final, really heavy question. What is the true, unseen cost of survival?